Alright, welcome to another episode of RC Hot Tip, and today we're going to be talking about connectors, or rather I'm going to be showing you the connectors that I've actually upgraded to recently. Now as you can see, I've got a few different connectors laid out here. These are just some of the connectors that I've had here at home for quite some time. Some of them I use, some of them I don't use, but I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a baseline on different types of connectors, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a little bit of background information, and you'll be able to make a decision on whether or not the connectors you're currently using are really the right ones for you, or whether it's time to make a change. Especially if you're early on in the hobby and you haven't got too many batteries, you don't have too many cars, you may even only have one car. Now is the time that you need to decide what type of connector you're going to go for. So we're going to start at this end here. We're going to start with the Deans. Now these I've been using these for a very long time, pretty much ever since I got into the hobby, and they've been a good connector for the most part, but I have been having some issues running some high powered brushless systems through them, especially when I'm running 4S and 6S on some of these big powerful brushless systems. They tend to get really hot, and on a few occasions I've actually unsorted from the connectors as well. And that's really because the Deans, they're kind of limited to about 60 amps, and we're running much more ampage through these cables than the connectors are really capable of handling. And not just that, but I've also had a few of these sort of things happen where they kind of the springs kind of open up and you can't really fit them well. These actually came out of my armor cars, or one of my armor cars, the 1/8 scale armors, and yeah, well, hopefully this won't be a problem anymore, because Armor have actually upgraded their connectors in the future releases of their models, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. Then we've got the start plugs. Now these start plugs are basically a Deans, but they have these little caps on the end so that you don't have to use shrink tubing like you see here. Now the caps are a great idea, but you are limited on the type, or the size of wire rather, that you can fit in here. So if you're using anything up to 12 gauge, you should be fine. So wires like this, even smaller like that one there. But when you get into say 10 gauge, for example, like you've got here on this Basher battery, or even more so when you get onto 8 gauge, like I have on this one here, for example, you really do struggle to fit them on, or even with the 8 gauge, you won't fit them on there at all. Unless of course you strip the insulating cable back and just have the exposed wire coming out the back, but then that defeats the purpose of the cap. Then of course you got your Traxxas connector, which I've never really gotten into. I know a lot of people use these, but I've never been a fan, so I don't bother with these. EC3s or EC5s, which are a larger version of these. They're about the same size as the XT90s over there. Very good connector, more of a Horizon hobby type of connector, but again, I've never really gotten into these. XT60s, I use these quite a lot in my aeroplanes, and you know, anything 3S or 4S is usually fine for these types of connectors. Pretty much all of these along here, they're all capable of about 60 amps, and given that most of my planes tend to run 40 amp ESCs, some of them run 50 amps, very few go up above 50. There's only a couple that go above 50, but yeah, the XT60s work fine. And you can see these have actually got the little caps on them as well, but that's okay, because a lot of the batteries that I get, such as this MaxAmps one here, only comes with 12 gauge wire, and you know, well, this one has shrink tubing which came with the battery, but if I was to you know, take this off and by whatever reason I needed to plug one of these in, this should be fine to use. Then you've got these 4mm bullet connectors. I'm not entirely sure what the name of these are, to be honest with you. They do have a funny name though. These I mainly get from Hobby King with their RCs or with some of their batteries, and I usually cut them off. I've never really gotten into these type of connectors. XT90s. Now, interesting thing about XT90s, as I said earlier, Armor have updated their current line of 1/8 scale vehicles from these tiny little Deans into XT90s. So they're going to be releasing some new RCs, or updated RCs of their current 1/8 scale lineup, and they're all going to come with XT90s. Now, XT90s are a great connector. They obviously handle a lot more amps, and you can see the size difference between one and the other there. These are so tiny compared to the XT90s, but they still have one disadvantage. Even though they can handle more amps, they also have this little cradle on the back, which the XT60s also have, and allows more contact, direct contact with your cabling. So when you're soldering them on, you've actually got more direct contact with your cable, which is a really good thing. You're not just relying on the solder to do the work, such as when you solder on to your DINs, which is, you know, a round cable onto a flat surface. You're going to have very minimal contact. And as you can see here, some of the batteries that are available now, like this Graphene 6S 3000 milliamp, came with XT90s already pre-installed. So I think this is a really good step forward in the RC hobby, where manufacturers such as Arma is actually supplying some better connectors. Manufacturers such as Turnigy or Hobby King are actually supplying some of their batteries now with XT90s as well, and it kind of makes sense. You're running more power, you're running bigger brushless systems, you really want to get more speed, more performance out of your RC, you want to get better connectors. So I think this is a first step that we're going to see with a lot of manufacturers providing some better connectors, as opposed to just these tiny little DINs with you know, big powerful brushless systems. Now last but not least, we have the XT150s, which are these guys back here. Now these are the connectors that I've opted for, and I've been changing a lot of my batteries, such as this one here, which is the 4000 milliamp MaxAmps, have got the XT150s already pre-installed on there. Well, I say pre-installed, but I installed them myself. I've also got them on the 8 gauge, and you can see here that it fits onto the 8 gauge no problem at all, so it'll handle that. Also my Basher battery, you can see this one here, also has the XT150s, that has a 10 gauge wire. And of course, the main reason why I've decided to go with these connectors is because, as you've seen, they actually split up, right? They have these tiny little sort of slots in there. You can slot them into place so they hold together, or you can split them up. Now the bullets in these are actually quite big. I think they're either a 6 or a 6.5 millimeter, and they've got this great big kind of cradle. Oh, I don't know what you'd call it exactly, but you can put a great big cable in there and do all your soldering and everything, and it holds very nicely. Now, when you want to run batteries in series, say for example you want to run these two 3S packs from Nanotech, if you're to use any of these other connectors back here, you need one of these, which is a series connector. Okay, now what this means is that not only are you extending the length of your cable from your battery to your ESC, but you're also introducing more bottlenecks, you're introducing more resistance in the circuit, and that's not a good thing. So I've been using this for a very long time. This white connector I actually made myself. You can see that one of the connectors here is slightly discolored, or a different brand, I'm not entirely sure. But even my Bushmaster, for example, came with this one, which was quite big. And it also has these, well, I wouldn't call them DINs because I don't think they're original DINs, but they're very much the same as the DINs. But again, I'm extending the length of the cable, I'm introducing more bottlenecks for the current to flow, and that's really not a good thing. So if you want to get maximum performance out of your RCs, or especially if you're doing you know, speed runs and things like that, XT150s are a great connector to have. Now, this is not the only type of connector that will do this. There are others, but I like these ones because they have these little plastic caps around them, and you know, they're not going to touch and short out or do anything silly like that. So in this case, if I want to run two batteries in series, all I have to do is connect my red and my black together, like so, and now bam, I'm ready to go into the ESC. So what this means is that I've halved the amount of connection points from the battery to the ESC. So let's look at this again. If each one of these is 2 connection points, you've got 2, 4, 6. I've now only got 3. You got one here, you got one here, and you've got one here. That's it. All right, so I've got bigger connectors which reduce resistance, I've got less connection points which again reduce resistance, and I've got better current flow because I've got these bigger connectors, and I can have, well, better performance out of my RC. So that is why I've chosen to go with the XT150s. Now, whether you decide to go for the XT90s, whether you're quite happy to stick with your DINs, that is entirely up to you, but hopefully you've got a little bit of information here to be able to go back and really think about, can you get more performance out of the current setup that you have? Because you don't have to necessarily upgrade your brushless system to get more power, especially if you're running little connectors like these. You just have to be a little bit smarter using the exact same RC, the exact same gearing, the exact same batteries that you're using, and increase performance that way just by simply changing out into something like this, for example. So that is it for this episode of RC Hot Tip. Hopefully you guys got some useful information out of this. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of food for thought, and you can really go back and assess whether or not the connectors that you're currently using are the right ones for you. If you have any questions about any of this, please be sure to leave a comment down in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out the video description for more information on the XT150s, which by the way can handle up to about 150 amps. These can go up to about 90 amps, and pretty much everything else here. I'm not sure what these ones are. I think they're about 60 amps as well. But all of these can go up to around about 60 amps. Although I have my doubts about these. I think they struggle to get to 60 amps, to be honest with you. But that is it. I got them from Hobby King. There'll be a link in the description. Don't forget to like the video before you go. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you all very much for your attention, and I will speak to you guys next time.